Hey, brothers and sisters, it's Julie Blair here with Julie Blair Ministries. And today I want to get into a message that I think is pertinent for these times. And I first want to tell you that God is on your side. There's a lot of times that people believe that God hates them, and I can certainly attest to that. There was a time in my life where I just thought that, one, that God hated me, two, that God was not for me, three, that it was pure punishment, and four, that no matter what I did, it was never enough, and that I would never be enough to be pleasing in the eyes of the Lord. And I lived that way for a very long time. And in fact, I'll tell you that I was under the teaching of someone, phenomenal teaching in many, many ways. And one night the comment was made that God delighted in David, and David was blessed. And so if you want God to, and if you're not blessed, it's because God's not delighting in you. And I have to tell you, brothers and sisters, that I was in so much bondage because of that, because I looked around thinking that because I didn't have that which I was believing God for, that I wasn't blessed. And because I wasn't blessed, God didn't delight in me, which made me a bigger, pathetic loser. And I lived that way. And I was a Christian. And I was a mature Christian. And I've still fell for the trap of believing the lie. And so when I tell you that God is on your side, it is because He is. And there's never been a moment in your life where you've not been loved. Whether or not you feel like He's not on your side is different from whether or not the fact that He is. And so I want to get into the book of Joshua and show a few things to you that the Lord has shown me about how God works on our behalf when we get with Him. And it's just so awesome how Joshua got this. And when I look at Joshua, he's just like such a cool guy that he was so decisive in his actions, and he had such faith, and he always had victory from the Lord because he sought the Lord. He never got too big for his britches to where he didn't need God. And so you can have all the PhDs and all the money in the world, but guess what? You're still going to die. You're still going to have issues. And if you don't know Jesus and you don't want Jesus, then I wouldn't want to be going where you're going. I'm just being real because that's the truth. So when we look, though, in the book of Joshua, I want to go to Joshua 10. And it's really cool that God gave Joshua victory, but it's the way in which it happened. And so one of the things that I do when I'm reading the Bible is that there's always so many things that God will show me about so much. So I have notes plastered all over my wall for different things that I want to just share with you because God's just that good. So in Joshua 10, I'm going to go from 7 to 11. And it tells us, so Joshua ascended from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, and all the mighty men of valor. And the Lord said unto Joshua, fear them not, for I have delivered them into thine land. There shall not a man of them stand before thee. Joshua therefore came unto them suddenly, and went up from Gilgal all night. And the Lord discomfited them before Israel, and slew them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, and chased them along the way that goeth up to Beth Horon, and smote them to Azekah and unto Makkedah. Love all the pronunciations of these names. And before it came to pass, as they fled before Israel, there were in the going down to Beth Horon, that the Lord cast down great stones from heaven upon them unto Azekah, and they died. They were more which died with hailstorms than they whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. So, I don't have an NIV around me. No NIV. All right, so we're just going to stick with this. King James works just fine, obviously. But here's the thing, is that I want to read a couple different things, but that's okay. So here's the thing that we see what happens. Is that, so we know Joshua came from Gilgal, and all the people were with him. So we don't know how many, we just know that all of them. So that's pretty good. He's not alone, God's with him. But here's the thing. And the Lord said unto Joshua. So the Lord speaks to Joshua. Joshua's hearing. We're no different. That's the first thing. God speaks to you. Are you hearing? Are you listening? There's a difference between listening and hearing. Hearing, you hear it, but it's passive. Listening is active. So are you listening when the Lord speaks? And then are you following through with the commands that he gives you? Sometimes, maybe not. Maybe that should increase. All right, so he says, and the Lord said unto Joshua, fear them not. That's a command. Fear them not. Why? For I have delivered them into thy land. Now, it wouldn't even matter if there was a reason why, but God just said, fear them not. Okay, end of story. Okay, God, I won't fear. I won't fear. But he's gracious enough to tell him why. For I've delivered them into thine land. So God's already taken care of the battle. God's already done it, right? God's already gone before Joshua. It's all done. All Joshua's got to do is just walk it out. He's already got the victory. There shall not be a man of them stand before thee. All right, so here's a few things. In order for Joshua to hear from the Lord, he had to get his mind right aligned, which means he's got to align himself with himself, to be aligned with God, to hear from God, to then be able to follow out the commands of the Lord. It sounds like a lot, right? But all it means is that Joshua was obedient and he paid attention when the Lord spoke. That simple. And it's easy for you to do as well when you make the choice to do so. It goes back to that decisiveness that Joshua had within him, that, you know what, I'm going to do this. All the other 10 spies saw one thing. Joshua and Caleb saw something completely different. Very decisive in his decisions to be obedient to the Lord. How obedient and how decisive are you on those decisions? When the Lord speaks, do you follow through, or do you kind of think that when or now means later? See, when God gives a command, most of the times it's not for you to do 55 years from now when you feel like it, after you've watched 50 years of America's Got Talent or whatever else that you divulge on. Okay, so we see that Joshua already had an established relationship with the Lord, which we know this. We can read in the first 10 chapters, right? But so he already had an established relationship. He heard from the Lord. He followed the commands of the Lord. The command of the Lord was fear not. That's one thing. The second thing was that God was with him. So that's another cool thing. So if we're going through our daily battles, if God is with Joshua and we position ourselves to be with the Lord, will he not be with us? Of course he will. But if you're forsaking him, how can he work on your behalf? You see, that's when many people think, well, I'll just read the book. You know, I read it, and let's just toss it out the window and then go run and go live life. Kind of like a dog, little puppy or big puppy, whenever you open up the door and the dog's like, boom, and you run in to catch up. Sometimes that's how we are, where we go ahead of God, and then we don't get the victory, and then we turn around and blame God, when in reality, all we needed to do was listen to God in the first place. Joshua listened and he followed the steps of the Lord. Now, here's another thing, is that God tells him, why fear not? Fear not. Well, because I've already given them into the land. There shall not a man of them stand before thee. So, it's done. It's done. So he already had the victory. So you already have victory because Jesus died on that cross for you. You were blood bought. You're in a covenant with God. This means that every single word in this word, every single part of it, will never return void. So it is true. You're in a covenant with God. There's nothing that you can do. You can turn away from God, but God is obligated to fulfill every single thing in his word, because otherwise he would be an unjust God, and then you could go call him a liar, but he's not, because he's never not fulfilled anything in his word. So you already have victory. But do you see that? Do you see that God is already there with you? Joshua got it. Joshua got the victory. All he did was walk it out. I continue on. Let's see here. So he tells him, don't fear, don't have any fear. Joshua therefore came unto them suddenly. Love that. So he's already got a battle plan, right? God's telling him, fear not. He's going to do. He's going to bum rush him. They've got all the stuff, or whatever that word is people use. And so he took over. He knew what he was doing. But see, here's the thing. The Lord discomfited them. The Lord did it. The Lord did it. What are you wanting the Lord to do in your life that he's not doing because you are in the way? See, God worked on the behalf of Joshua because Joshua allowed him to. It was a give. I don't want to say it was a give and take relationship. It was a give and receive and a give relationship. I don't like give and take, because if you're taking something, that means that you overstepped a boundary. But if you're receiving something, it was given to you. See the difference in that? A little bit of a difference, but here's the thing. They had a give and give relationship. Joshua gave everything to the Lord. The Lord gave back. The Lord made the way. He made the way. It tells us the Lord discomfited them before Israel and slew them with a great slaughter. God did it. God will do great things on your behalf when you get out of the way and when you let him. When you stop blaming God for what you don't have, that you keep messing up, things will change. You may be praying to God for a spouse, but then you go and date all the wrong ones, complaining about it. How can God work? You haven't even cleaned up the baggage from the last 15 people that messed your life up. So how can God work on your behalf to bring the right one? Right? It's a simple question. But you see, how often are we in God's way with all the issues of life and then blame God, and God can't do anything because we're overruling everything in our intellect that's like the size of a pinprick, right? Same with our wisdom. So God did this and chased them along the way that go up to Beth-horon and smote them to Azekah and unto Makkedah. Okay, so there's things moving. Joshua's getting the victory. He's following the leading of the Lord. He's not moving too fast. He's not moving too slow. He's moving right in the order of the Lord, because otherwise, if he got ahead, well, he would be ahead. See, there's something to be said about God's time. And more often than not, the time that we want God to operate on is not God's time. We want God to operate on our timing, not recognizing that our timing typically is not God's timing. And when we get on God's time, things will change. It's probably one of the hardest things that I've ever had to go through is being in God's time. So he continues on, and come to pass as they fled from Israel and were going down to Beth-horon, and the Lord cast down great stones from heaven. The Lord cast down the great stones. So if it wasn't in the right time, and the stones came from heaven, well, then they wouldn't have hit anything. So what would have been the point, right? And if Joshua wasn't being obedient in the first place, then none of the plan would have worked. God could have just found someone else, sure. Except for the fact that Joshua was the man on the ground. Joshua was the leader. Joshua was the one that needs to be getting done what needs to be getting done with God, so that God can do what God needs to do to get the victory, which he already told Joshua that he had. Brothers and sisters, it's no different in your life. It's no different. The victories are there, but I'm going to bet that probably some of your problems are that the victories aren't coming in the way that, one, that you see, two, the way that you want, or three, that you're willing to go through to get to them. We live in such a society where we want everything now and yell at the microwave when the popcorn takes too long. And when, I met her 3 hours ago. Why aren't we married yet? And why don't you call me back? Text me. I just texted you 20 seconds ago. Where's my response? And we live in such this hurried world. But you see, God isn't really moving in that way. We should be thanking him, because if God moved at our pace, we'd all be wiped out. Imagine if God had no patience. If God exhibited the patience with you that you exhibit with others, where would you be? I wouldn't even be here. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. I named my dog Olive Patience just so I could hear patience, every opportunity to dwell it into me. And of course, those of you who are bold enough to pray for patience know that you'll get it, except I've already taught on this like 9 months ago. Instead of praying for patience, pray for the capacity to love, because patience is a component of love, and then you'll get both. So it's kind of a bigger picture thing. But you see, Joshua went to the Lord, and God made the way, all in God's time. It was a hailstorm from heaven. Now, if you're trying to run in front of God to get victory your own way, what are you going to do to make it hail? You're going to go get a hail stick and run around in circles and think hail's going to come? I mean, I would love to see videos of that. There's a bunch of people running around, however they're going to do it, wearing whatever they need to wear to make some hail, right? But you see, the Lord did this. And they died. Not only did Joshua follow the commands of the Lord, fear not, I got your back. He's given him the victory. And he makes the way right at the right time for the hailstorm to come and knock out all the people with a hailstorm. How do you like that for God being on your side? I mean, just examine that for a moment. This I love. I have to be honest with you. I love the strategy of how God did this, because we know that God can wipe out your enemies. And that, so if you have enemies, which, you may say, well, I don't have any enemies. Well, you probably do. You just can't see or know them right at this moment, because the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. So I love this, that God, when you go to God on behalf of, say, God, there are these people, there's whatever coming after me, it's attack from the enemy, destroy him. God can use a hailstorm to do it. God is not bound by his thinking. We are bound by our thinking, and the only thing that limits God is our thinking of what he can do. Joshua didn't even ask, well, what are you going to do, God? How are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? All Joshua did was follow the leading of the Lord, and God did it. And these people died. And there were more than they whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. So here's the thing. God makes the way. God is on your side, and God already has the victory for you. It is you recognizing your part in your relationship with the Lord to move in that level of victory that you already have. It's already there. And so the time that you spend battling God, where are you, God? Why aren't you doing this? Where are you, God? Why aren't you doing this? God, are you mad at me? God, are you punishing me? God. That was how I lived for a very long time. God, where are you? Where are you? Every day. It was like, Ellen, all day, every day. Ellen. And I know, Olive. And it will wear you down. And all it does is create a level of dissent between you and the Lord, and all the enemy's doing is sitting back. Yeah, got another one. Look at those two. And he's like got his own little cam or something, watching it all, just getting his minions to laugh at how crazy we are, right? But you see, here's the thing, is that when you recognize that God's on your side, that he's speaking directly to you, that you already have the battle won. It's already won. That all you have to do is follow the leading of the Lord, you will have it. I got more notes here. I have written out that the Lord works on your behalf when we align ourselves with him to do so. We just have to align ourselves. And look, God gives. God gave his son. We already know that, but I mean, it needs to be said. So God gave the victory. God made the way. He gave them the way. He gave them every single thing that he needed in order to be victorious. What more do you think that you would need for God to do for you to actually get that you already have the victory? What more does God need to give you for you to get it? I mean, I'm just asking, because it took me a long time to get my mind right. And now that I get it right, got my mind rightfully aligned with the Lord, I recognize that anything that tries to get me to live contrary to this word is a lie. It's a joke. It's a fallacy. It's something I'm not receiving. All the sin that God says is sin, whether I like it or not, doesn't change it. God made the way for me to be victorious. He made the way for you to be victorious. He made the way for Joshua and gave Joshua the victory by taking people out with a hailstorm. I mean, how much more creative do we need to get, right? But how much more simplistic do we need to get the picture? All we need to do is follow the Lord. All we need to do is follow the Lord, and he will make your path clear. He will make your path steady. He will strengthen you. He will give you the victory. He will help you in every single way that you need help. So I'm going to encourage you today to go to the Lord and talk to him. Tell him everything that you've been holding back. Just tell him, you know what, God, I think that you've cheated me. I have been bitter against you, and I've had some unforgiveness towards you, and I just repent of that because I don't want anything between us. And Lord, I've just been mad at you since whatever. Lord, I want to be right with you. I want to break down this wall. I want to remove this Gorbachev, tear down the wall. I want this removed, Lord. I want us to have a solid relationship. You see, nothing's going to happen until something happens. Joshua was obedient and he followed and things happened. But so long as you sit and wallow in your own little party over here that's blocking God out, nothing else can happen. What can he do? What seriously would you expect God to do if you're over here pouting against him? I mean, what really would you want him to do? I wanted God to hear me. I wanted to be heard. I wanted to be understood. I wanted to feel like I wasn't alone. I wanted to know that the victory was there, and I wanted to see it, and I wanted to know it, and I wanted to believe it, own it, and live it. That's what I wanted. And you know what? I fought and I broke down that barrier with the Lord. And I removed the enemy from my camp that was messing up my mind, telling me all those things of what I would never be, regardless of what God did. I had to remove all the lies, and there were so many of them, and you might have to do the same thing in order to get that victory. But I assure you that you already have it. You just have to remove yourself, follow God's word, get yourself aligned, and know that his word will never leave you at all. He will never leave you nor forsake you. For reference, I encourage you to go back to Joshua 10 and it's verses 7 through 11 and see what God did for that battle and how they won. You already have the victory, brothers and sisters. I want you to be able to see that very, very clearly. And I also want you to know that while I can tell you that you're not alone, it's because you're really not. The Lord is with you. But you know what? I'm here with you as well. And I pray daily for the needs of the saints. I have prayer partners. I'm in prayer all the time. I mean, morning, noon, evening, night, all the time. Because there's so much to be talking to the Lord about. And if you have a prayer request or you're struggling with something, let me help you. Don't go it alone, and don't hate God forever because that's what the enemy wants. The enemy wants to isolate you and give you death. I mean, it's simple put. But you're worth more than that. You're better than that, and you have more than that, especially in Christ. Let us know how we can help you. And if you have a testimony, then please share it. It's time that we get this testimony spread out there. And you know what? If you would be so kind, we need your support. I'm wanting to take Julie Blair Ministries to another level, and I am believing God for the means to have a Julie Blair Ministries Roku channel, and that costs. And so I'm believing the Lord that we will have all the means to pay for the development, to start moving in a direction that will keep us reaching 10 million plus more people for Christ, but will also keep me from being censored on the airways or on the internet. So I'm believing God. We just need to raise like $500. That's it. It's not a lot of money, but I'm asking you, will you help me make certain that the whole word gets shared to the ends of the earth? Go to julieblair.com and let us know how we can help you. And brothers and sisters, stand with us as we go forward to help more people come to know Jesus. God bless you all. Love you guys in the name of Jesus. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.